everybody. Oh gosh, what's going on with my hair? Ooh. Hi everybody. Just checking in, make sure everyone is jumping in. I don't know about you, but it is cold where I am. Okay. So if anyone's in here, jump in and give me the thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Because I just want to make sure that you can hear me okay. Yeah, otherwise, might just go ahead and get started. Okay. So, hello everybody. I hope you had a absolute stellar of a Thursday. I definitely had a massive day today, but I ticked lots of boxes. So feeling productive and like I achieved a few things, so that's always good. So for those of you who are new to this group, welcome. My name is Chelsea and I am a passionate gut health nerd, helping coach people back to happy and healthy gut health. And the way I like to do this is through educating you. So that's why I jump on here every Thursday. Hi, Mel. I jump on here every Thursday, or I will be jumping on here every week on a Thursday at 6:30 to this time every Thursday. Just checking. Cool. Okay, just wanted to make sure that you guys can hear me okay. Like I mentioned last week, I'm not a tech savvy gal, so I just want to make sure that I do this properly, because I would hate to speak for an hour or however long, half an hour, 45 minutes, and then it not be recording. That would be horrible. So okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna just chat and sorry. Okay, I'm gonna chat, just talk about tonight's topic, and then I'll be looking at the comments afterwards and checking in then. So if you don't see me or hear me reply to your comments throughout, that's just how I do things. So anyway, with that said, like I said, for the people who don't, or for the people who are new, welcome. It's really great to have you on board the Love Your Guts community. It's a really great community full of like-minded women and support. So this is going to be a really exciting journey for anyone who wants to get on a gut healing or a gut nourishing journey, because you've got copious amounts of women to reach out to, and people like myself and Brooke and other nutritionists in the group that can, yeah, give you some insights into some amazing nuggets of wisdom around gut health. So last week we spoke about stress and how stress affects the gut. And that was a really important one, because stress really does trump. No matter, what we're eating, no matter what we're moving, like no matter how we're exercising, stress really does trump. So we really want to focus in and hone in on reducing stress to help decrease inflammation in the gut. And if this is a topic that hits close to home for you, which is probably most of us, then you can go ahead and watch last week's live. I have actually posted it in this group. If you don't know where to find it, just comment in the comments here and tag me, and I can tag you in the live that I did last week. So, all right, let's just dive straight into tonight's topic. I'm super, super excited about it. And tonight's topic is all about inflammatory foods, and this was voted by you guys. So I put a little poll in the group to find out what topic you guys wanted to chat about this week, and it was all things inflammatory food. And we're going to be looking at what exactly are inflammatory foods when it comes to the gut, and how are they actually impacting the gut. And maybe we can chat a little bit about how we can avoid them, and maybe even swap them out for maybe some gut nourishing foods instead. But we'll see how we go. And yeah, I don't want to be talking for hours, because I could definitely talk for hours on this topic. But firstly, I want to strip this topic back, really strip it back, and understand, what is food? You know, where is our food coming from? And how I want to get you guys to understand this is, I want you to take a minute to think about the food that you currently have in your home. So in your fridge, in your freezer, in your pantry. You know, what does your fridge and freezer actually look like? Does it look like lots of whole food, lots of fruit, vegetables, meat, poultry, eggs, leafy greens? Or does it look a bit more like, you know, pre-packaged meals that you can be ready to go, heated up in the microwave? Or maybe lots of jarred things, lots of jarred spreads and condiments, maybe soft drinks and lots of snacky things and chocolates and stuff like that. And, you know, what about your pantry? What does your pantry look like? Is it full of whole foods again, like nuts and seeds and, you know, loose leaf teas and things like that? Or maybe some of you guys are fermentation freaks like me, and you have transformed your pantry into a science lab, and you've got these fermented things bubbling away everywhere. Or maybe is your pantry full of packaged and like snacky foods, you know, like chips and biscuits and Milo and gosh, you know, tinned foods and pre-made pastas and curry sauces, you know, packaged pastas, things like that. Yeah, what is in your fridge, freezer, and pantry? Really get a good visual on that. And if you need to, get up and go and have a look while you listen to me chat now, if that's going to help you. Because this really is step one to becoming aware of what foods you are actually spending your money on. What foods are you spending your hard-earned money on? And with that visual in mind, is your money being spent on foods that are nourishing your body, or foods that are contributing to the discomfort and health concerns that you're experiencing today? So I kind of want to put this in perspective for you, give you a little bit of an analogy. So, for example, let's look at your car. If you know that your car runs on unleaded petrol, then are you going to spend your money on putting diesel into it? Probably not. Because why would we spend our money that we worked so hard for to put the wrong type of fuel in our car, to then have it break down and then have to spend more money on fixing the problem, right? So, you know, we'll take it to the mechanic and want to get them to fix the problem, but this problem can manifest in all different kinds of ways. You know, I'm not a mechanic, but, you know, that problem could look like one thing over here busting, or the engine over here blowing up, or something else happening. But whatever happens, the root problem is getting the diesel out of the car. That needs to be fixed so that the other problems can be fixed and not happen again. And this is the same for the human body. So if you're someone looking at your fridge and pantry and seeing an abundance of packaged and processed foods, condiments, cereals, TV snacks, processed breads, stuff like this, then this is your diesel. You are spending your money on the wrong food or fuel for your body. And therefore the body is experiencing its own breakdown mechanisms, and that can look different for everyone. So this might look like digestive discomfort, skin problems, fatigue, joint and muscle pain, allergies, hormone imbalances, autoimmune conditions, and the list goes on. All gut relative. But just like the car, we do have to fix the root problem. And, that is putting the right food, the right fuel into our bodies so that these health issues can improve and hopefully be fixed. So with this said, this introduces the notion that there are definitely some foods out there that are 100% inflammatory to the gut and to the body that we should be avoiding as best we can. And we're going to dive into this tonight. So let's get started. And I'm going to be talking about four types of foods in particular. So yes, there are, people can be more tolerant or more intolerant to a whole range of different foods in today's society. But I want to hone in on the four that everybody should be at least steering clear from today. And that is refined sugar and processed carbohydrates, dairy, gluten, and those horrible industrial vegetable oils. So I'll talk more, as far as dairy and gluten goes, I will talk more into, the why behind, why some people should be steering clear from it, but doesn't necessarily mean that we should be removing it. It's more so the type of dairy and the type of oils and the type of sugar and the type of carbohydrates that I want you to be aware of, and why that these types are actually inflammatory to the gut. So let's get started. And I'm going to start with refined sugar and processed carbohydrates because they're always a fun topic to start with. So these two kind of are coupled in together, and that's why I put them in together, because they're very similar. So first and foremost, refined sugar negatively changes the diversity of the gut microbiome. And it really is that simple. So what does that even mean? What does changing the diversity of the gut microbiome even mean? So we know that the gut lining and the gut bacteria have a beautiful, beautiful, harmonious relationship. So one can't thrive without the other. And we need this healthy gut lining to provide a beautiful environment for the gut bacteria to thrive and reproduce. And we need a balanced diversity of the gut bacteria to help digest the food that we consume in order for them to produce specific nutrients, which is actually the fuel that feeds the gut lining to then maintain a healthy gut lining and to maintain that healthy environment for the gut bacteria to thrive. So you can see how this relationship works. Now, I am going to be probably repeating that a lot throughout my lives, my weekly lives. So I'm sorry if you're going to get sick of me saying it, but this relationship, I really want you to understand and get embedded in your mind, because we can't look at them as two individual things. We need to look at them as a team, a beautiful team. a harmonious teen. So now that we know that, how these two work together, I want to, have you understand how the refined sugar actually alters the gut microbiome, so the gut bacteria. And it really does alter it by promoting the wrong bacteria growth. So refined sugar, when we consume it, it's feeding the wrong type of bacteria. Now, we've got different types of bacteria in the gut. We've got opportunistic bacteria, which is normally classified as the bad bacteria. And what happens is this sugar feeds this bacteria. And when they're getting fed, they're reproducing, and they're overpopulating, and they're overgrowing in the gut. And then that's where we can see this imbalance in gut microbiome, in gut bacteria, So when we have an imbalance of these bad bacteria, we ultimately have a compromised gut lining. And this connection ultimately leads to a leaky gut. And when we have a leaky gut, we can start to see all of these gut issues that we talk about. So skin issues, digestive issues, hormone imbalances. We can see muscle and joint pain, autoimmune, allergies, all different things like that. So, but that is really the basis of how refined sugar changes the diversity of the gut bacteria and then harms the gut lining. So now I kind of want to talk about the refined carbohydrate sides of things. And I'll go into a little bit more, giving you examples of what refined sugar looks like and what refined carbohydrates look like. But you know me, I'm all about education, and I want to teach the why behind everything, or the how, or the what. So what are carbohydrates? Do you guys even know what a carbohydrate is? And this is the really fascinating sides of it, because carbohydrate is the natural source of sugar that we find in whole foods. In whole foods. So an example of this would be like, a vegetable like a carrot, or a sweet potato, for example. These vegetables are on the sweeter sides of things, and so they would actually contain more of these carbohydrates compared to, say, broccoli, which isn't as sweet. So these carbohydrates are generally the right type of carbohydrates that the body likes to feed on. And this is because the carbohydrate or the sugar, it also comes with lots of fiber and lots of vitamins and lots of minerals that almost encapsulate that carbohydrate. And so when we consume it, the body is breaking down that carbohydrate, and it also uses those vitamins and minerals to help the digestive process and help the body absorb that carbohydrate. So if you want a clear example of this, I think, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's something like for every 1 molecule of sugar that the body is trying to digest, we also need 50 molecules of magnesium to help that digestive process. So with that said, the beautiful thing that Mother Nature provides is that within that food, so within the sweet potato or within the carrot or within whatever it is we're talking about, Mother Nature provides generally almost the perfect ratio between sugar and vitamins and minerals that we need in order to break down and absorb. So I just find that absolutely fascinating. So with that said, that's how we are meant to normally process, a more healthy carbohydrate. But in today's day, we're consuming way more processed and refined carbohydrates. So not the ones that we find in whole foods, but ones that are refined and processed in factories. So what's happened here is a factory has taken the whole food and it has, stripped away all of those vitamins and minerals and fiber, and it's left the carbohydrate as like a concentrated sugar. So not only have we got a concentrated sugar, but generally when things are processed, a lot of things are added to, so lots of additives and preservatives and harmful vegetable oils and things like that. And we'll get to talking about that later on. But when we have this concentrated sugar or this concentrated carbohydrate, it's going to have it's going to have a different way of being digested in the body, and it's going to be harmful to the body. So basically how I want to put it is that when we strip away these nutrients and we've got this concentrated sugar, we're putting a lot of stress on the body because we don't have those nutrients to help digest that carbohydrate. So where are we going to get them from? We're going to have to pull it from somewhere else in the body. So if we don't have that magnesium in the fruit, in the vegetable or whatever it is that we're eating to help digest that sugar, then we're going to go, oh, okay, we've got magnesium stored throughout the body. We're going to pull it from there and we're going to help digest this sugar. So this is actually contributing to magnesium deficiencies that we commonly see in today's society. But if we can, just take a second here to look back on all of the times that we have actually consumed processed carbs and processed sugars. I know for me, I had a rough childhood of constantly having refined sugars and refined carbohydrates. I can't even imagine the stress that I put on my body, and how nutrient deficient I would have been as a young kid. But when we are able to take a look at what we have put in our bodies over our lifetime, we'll probably see that the body has had a lot of nutrients stripped away from it, and this could leave all different organs nutrient deficient. And we see it a lot in the skin. The skin is normally the first to go, so the skin kind of sacrifices a lot of its nutrients, a lot of its healthy fats and things like that, and we start to see skin conditions arise through bad gut health. So this can look like psoriasis, acne, eczema, things like that. But overall, with this constant happening in the body, the constant eating processed and refined sugars and carbohydrates, being overexposed to these types of foods, we obviously can develop a compromised gut lining and obviously an imbalance in gut bacteria because they're connected together. And we can also see altered carbohydrate digestion within the gut. So if we've got a dysfunctional gut, then chances are we've got dysfunctional absorption of nutrients happening. So let's talk the real deal. Let's talk examples of this. So what are examples of refined sugar and refined carbohydrates? We're looking at number one, refined sugars, is high fructose corn syrup. So high fructose corn syrup is, well, goodness, it's in a lot of things. It's in a lot of processed foods, and it's actually, you'll probably find it in things that you would never think to even look. So it's not just in our sweets and in our baking and in our chips and all of our snacky type things, but you will find it in it can be in pasta sauces, in curry sauces, it can be in condiments, it can be in cereals, it can be in a lot of things that you find in the center of the supermarket, a lot of those packaged items. So we can also find just your simple white refined baking sugar, and we're also going to find sugar syrup in some of the honeys that we find in a supermarket. So this is kind of sad to say, but a lot of the honeys in today's day, it's only probably about half honey and the rest is some sort of a processed sugar syrup. And the reason why they do that is because it's cheaper. They don't think about the health benefits of society. So with honey, it's really best to go for raw local honey that's in your neighborhood area, at your farmer's market, maybe even in your health food shop you can get some local raw honey. And one thing to look out for is that, when you go into the supermarket and you see the same honey there, realistically, honey should never be the same. A batch of honey, it should change from season to season. The flavor, the color, everything should be changing because the bees are pollinating different flowers at different times of the year. So seeing the same bottle of honey on the shelf at the supermarket just doesn't make sense to me. And if you do see that, then it's probably something that's been processed. So that's something to keep in mind. But instead of having all these refined sugars, we can swap them out with new things. So we can swap them out for, Mother Nature's sugar, which is fruit and things like dates and prunes and dried fruit and stuff like that. How I was talking about before, the 1 molecule of sugar needs like 50 molecules of magnesium to be digested. Well, we can really see an example of this in dates. So dates are high in sugar, but they're also super, super high in magnesium. And that could be why. So an example of processed carbohydrates, we're looking at, your flours, like your white flours and your refined flours. So these flours, lots of them contain gluten, which we'll talk about later on. But, we can be changing these processed carbs. We're also talking like processed biscuits and pastas and things like that, breads. We can change those over to, nut and seed flours. We can change them over to gluten-free options. We can change it to maybe like a buckwheat flour. Instead of having pasta, we can make vegetables into noodles. So if you've got like a spiralizer or a zoodle maker, you can really make fun zoodles, different colorful zoodles or noodles with our vegetables instead of using pasta. So that's a great alternative. So that's all I want to say about sugars and carbohydrates for now. That was a big one because it is a big one. So I really hope that wasn't too overwhelming for anybody. But yeah, this is going to be probably one of the bigger lives that we do, because covering a topic like this, it is quite intense. So if anyone has any questions, they can just pop them in here, and we can always just do a live on more specific topics if we want. But yeah, let's move on. Let's move on to dairy. So dairy is a fun one. I really love talking about this because some people do well on dairy and some people don't do well on dairy, and that's okay. Well, it's more about having an educated decision around dairy rather than having a fear around dairy. And that goes for all food, really. So removing the comparing, well, okay. One thing I wanted to talk about was, a lot of people go, oh, well, this person can do well on dairy and I can't. Or this person's, doing this and can eat that and can drink that, but I can't. I don't do well on that, It's okay to be curious about it, but please don't compare yourself, because constantly wondering why something works for others and not you, that we can put fear into ourselves. And I would love you guys to come from a place of compassion. So with that said, if there's one thing that I learned on my own healing journey, and that is when I'm being against my own body, it's never going to get me anywhere. By having compassion for your own body and really sinking into a state of wanting to understand and listen to your body, or, I like to say call her, you know, she will service you the best way she knows how, and you guys are a team. And that's really how I look at it. So let's strip away the comparisons and just focus on what's going on for us at the time. So back to dairy. What is the go with dairy? It can be quite confusing. So let's first understand the components of what makes dairy, what makes milk, for example. So put simply, milk is, you know, there's protein, there's fat, and there's sugar. There's also lots of vitamins and minerals. But for the sake of this explanation, I will just talk about the protein, fat, and sugar. So, you know, you might have heard people are lactose intolerant, or, you know, don't digest the lactose very well. And the lactose is the sugar component found in milk. So this sugar requires a specific enzyme called lactase, and you guys don't have to remember any of this, but we've got the sugar and we need a specific enzyme to be able to digest the milk sugar within the body. Now, this is great for children because children with a healthy gut, you know, with a healthy gut, and also a healthy balanced gut microbiome, they have plentiful of this enzyme, so they have no problems digesting dairy if they do have a healthy balanced gut. However, as we start to get older, we start to lose the number of these enzymes. They begin to diminish, and this makes it really hard to digest this lactose sugar from the milk. And this can sometimes cause difficulty in digestion and show signs and signals like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, skin flare-ups, and just overall discomfort and inflammation. But with that said, you know, I wanted to really point out the role of skim milk. So skim milk has definitely got a detrimental effect on the gut. And it all stems from that horrendous fat makes me fat era. Now, this is probably going to have to be, you know, another topic for another night. But when skim milk was born, we started to see a rise in gut health issues. So what exactly is skim milk? How does skim milk get made? Basically what skim milk is we've got the fat removed. So what we just have left is the protein and the sugar. So we've kind of got a concentrated lactose drink. So I just mentioned before that as we get older, we actually start to lose the amount of those enzymes that are able to help digest that lactose content. But if we now are consuming skim milk, which has got this really rich content of the lactose, then we're really going to see inflammation in the gut because we're putting more stress on the body to have to process this sugar without the soldiers to do the work for us. So if you guys watched the video that I did last week about stress, how we were talking about stress can actually look like physical inflammation in the body. This is another way of how we can induce stress into the body by putting an overload of work into the gut when they don't have the resources to digest and absorb the right way. So that could be something just to note. But I guess, you know, are you starting to kind of see how this all comes together? You know, we're starting to see a connection between how high blood sugar levels or high sugary content foods are actually affecting gut health. So when we've got high sugar foods, high carbohydrate foods, we start to see an imbalance in gut bacteria. We start to get leaky gut, and then we can start seeing all of these health concerns unravel. But in other news, I guess I kind of wanted to touch base on two amazing products that could be beneficial for those who are dairy intolerant. So they are kefir and ghee. So kefir, kefir, however you want to say it. if anyone has any specific questions around this, just pop them in the comments and we can chat more about them. But kefir is a fermented milk, and ghee is butter, but just with the solids removed. So it's probably not going to mean too much to you right now. But I just wanted to introduce these two just to kind of get you curious, just to kind of get you thinking. So both of these foods are extremely nutrient rich, and I want to talk a little bit about kefir. So kefir it's fermented, whereby the sugar portion is actually eaten up by a specific bacteria during its fermentation process. And during this process, even more beneficial bacteria are actually produced. So this makes it for one liquid gold, and it introduces a lot of healthy gut bacteria into the gut when we consume it. So kefir has been renowned for improving a lot of gut-related conditions, especially reducing blood sugar problems. And isn't that a little bit ironic? You know, we've just been talking about the connection between high sugary foods and high blood sugar and bad gut health. And when we, ferment when we ferment milk and take away that sugar content and then produce more healthy gut bacteria, then we consume the kefir and then we start to really improve those gut issues. So it's kind of a really beautiful cycle. I hope that kind of makes sense, but yeah. So with that said, talking a little bit more about ghee as well. So ghee is another great option for those who are dairy intolerant. Ghee is butter with these milk solids removed. So really what's left is a big bunch of fat. And it's a really nutrient dense fat. And every cell in the body needs fat to function, full stop. Without fat, every single cell in the body is struggling. It's just as simple as that. So when we remove these milk solids from the butter, we're left with fat, and that way people who are dairy intolerant aren't actually being exposed to the lactose within the butter or the dairy in the butter. So kefir and butter are probably two really great starts for those who want to get more healthy nutrition from dairy but aren't really tolerating it that well. So, I want to talk about examples of bad dairy, which would be skim milk and skim anything. So if you look into your products when you buy them at the supermarket and you're seeing skim milk anywhere, chances are it's been highly processed and it's probably not going to be great for the gut. So that's why a lot of people recommend full fat. Lots of full fat dairy, or coconut cream is a great option for people who are dairy intolerant. Ghee and kefir, another great option. And if you want to be making nut milks instead of drinking milk, because that's okay too, there's, you've really got to be careful with the nut milks that are available at the moment, especially in cafes. So I don't really like to name drop, but I guess this is kind of one thing I am passionate about, and that is the Milk Lab nut milk that we find at cafes all around the nation. So Milk Lab was never ever produced for health products, and they don't ever promote it for health, and that's okay. It doesn't make it a good, nourishing alternative for coffee. So, or like to have in your coffee. It's not a great alternative for milk. With that said, only because it's got a lot of excess sugar in it, it's got a lot of preservatives in it, lots of just stuff that's added to it that makes it be able to froth really nicely. You'll find that other nut milks, they separate when you have coffee, whereas Milk Lab was designed, processed in a lab so that the nut milk would be consistent throughout the whole coffee. So note to self, next time you go for a coffee, maybe see if you can get a different nut milk. With that said, if you like to make your nut milks at home, there's a really great brand called, now I don't know how to say it that well, but I think it's called Uluhye, Uluhye. And they make a nut milk paste. And all you have to do is get a tablespoon of that paste and put it in with a litre of filtered water, blend it all together, and you have yourself a beautiful whole food nut milk ready to go. So if you want more information on that, just pop it in the comments and I can show you where to get yourself one of those. But yeah, that's kind of all I really want to say about dairy and how we see physical inflammation within the gut. So we're talking, it all comes down to, you know, imbalance in gut bacteria equals unhealthy gut lining. Unhealthy gut lining equals imbalance in gut bacteria. And that's what these foods have got in common. Now, I'm really sorry that I'm stumbling on my words today. I've had a massive day in the office. So yeah, my brain's going 1,000 miles an hour. So I hope you guys are with me still. So I want to talk about the third inflammatory food, and that is industrial vegetable oils, or more so industrial seed oils. So, you know, oil, it's a healthy fat, right? Like, yeah, we know it's a healthy fat, but only if it's in the natural form of like olive oil and coconut oil. Vegetable oils, on the other hand, like corn, canola, grapeseed, safflower, sunflower, cottonseed, soybean, all of these different oils are extremely processed and very toxic to the human body, extremely toxic to the human body. I'm not going to go into too much details, but if you want to know the why behind why they're so harmful to the body, then it's all got to do with the way that they're processed, and they're processed through a thing called partial hydrogenation. Now, I don't expect you to go to your next wine and cheese night talking about partial hydrogenation, but basically all you need to know about this is that this is a process where the oil is physically altered. So the composition of it, imagine you going through a factory and then your body just totally being altered, and your arm just looks retarded this way and your legs like flipped up to your head and your body is just bent like a rag doll. This is really what's happening to these oils. They're being transformed into harmful oils, and these fats, they don't physically fit in the body the way that they're meant to. So just like when you play a game of Tetris and everything kind of fits perfect, imagine these fats just never ever fitting properly and you don't ever get to win the game of Tetris. That's what's happening and when we consume these vegetable oils. And when these fats are consumed, they start to get lodged in awkward positions, and they start to alter the processes and the functions within the body, and they start to cause chaos, and long story short, it ends up in creating a lot of inflammation within the body. So another thing that these vegetable oils do is that they're unstable. So when I mean they're unstable, they also oxidize within the body. So when they're unstable, it means that they don't fit. They're an outcast. They're not meant for the human body. And when they when they have more of a chance to be oxidized, it means that they're going rancid. They're going rancid when they're in the body. And that is also contributing to inflammation, because we don't want rancidity in the body. We don't want our body to be, going off as such. And one of the sad things about these industries is that they know that these vegetable oils go rancid, and so some of them actually add deodorizers into the oil to cover up the smell of the rancidity. So that's something to just have a little think about. Do you want to be spending your money? And it always comes back to that. Do you want to be spending your money that you work for on such inflammatory foods? Because you're ultimately paying for inflammation. That's kind of how I see it. So with that said, I challenge you at some point this week to go through your fridge and pantry and, rummage through the ingredients label. Don't worry about the nutrition label. We don't need to look at that. Look at the ingredients label and see if you can find any of these harmful vegetable oils. So, like I said, we're looking at corn, safflower, sunflower, cottonseed, rapeseed, grapeseed, canola, and yeah, just all of those vegetable oils, which in turn, none of them are actually vegetables. A lot of them are seeds. And yeah, it's all very wrong. But anyway, so examples of foods that have some of these vegetables in them are things like margarine. Oh my goodness, margarine and the Nutelexes and lots of packaged goods, or those packaged goods that are in the middle of the supermarket. All of these foods are containing lots of these harmful vegetable oils, because these vegetable oils are extremely cheap to make, and they're fillers and they're binders, and they help the food have this stable shelf life, or a long shelf life. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's good for the body. It's actually causing a lot of inflammation within the gut. Something that we can change them out for is things like coconut oil and, cold pressed olive oil and cold pressed coconut oil and avocado oil and hemp oil. Natural oils like this are great for the body and super nourishing as well. Okay, and I want to talk about number 4. Number 4 is gluten. So basically with gluten, when I think of gluten, I think of bum glue. Now, I come from a history of constipation. When I look back, I just think, oh goodness, my diet was high in gluten, high in sugars, high in carbohydrates. And my constipation was off the charts. I don't think I would go to the bathroom for like 2 to 3 weeks maybe. And it felt like my bum was glued shut. So, I guess we can literally see it in the name, gluten. Gluten, it acts like a glue. So, what is it? What is gluten? So, gluten is a protein, and this is a protein that can be quite difficult for the human body to digest. Some people show clear signs that their body isn't digesting it well, like people with celiac disease and gluten intolerance. But did you actually know that you don't necessarily have to be showing signs of, routine gluten intolerance signals to actually be getting the negative effects of gluten when we consume it? Because gluten is considered to be an anti-nutrient, meaning that it's extremely hard for the human body to digest. And so it shows up in some, and it shows up in and it doesn't show up in others. But it doesn't mean that it's not affecting everyone across the board. So how does gluten affect the gut? and it affects it in a number of ways. So it contributes to, you guessed it, an imbalance in gut bacteria. And remember, when we have an imbalance in gut bacteria, we normally have a compromised gut lining. And gluten really does have a powerful negative effect on the gut lining, because not just through that harmonious relationship of the gut lining and the gut bacteria, but because the digestion, or the action of trying to digest gluten sparks specific processes in the body which actually physically start to not tear, but it promotes leaky gut. So the processes of digesting gluten means that the cells of the gut lining physically start to move like this. And this is what leaky gut is, allowing things to seep in and out of the gut lining. And yeah, just for some fun scientific facts, there's a lot of scientific validation just through lots of studies that have been done, showing that by removing gluten from the diet, many common gut-related health concerns have totally been improved. And that's including things like constipation, IBS, skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis, autoimmune conditions like MS and thyroid diseases, arthritis and muscle pain, depression and anxiety, brain fog, and yeah, just to name a few. So with that said, we can really clearly see that the removal of gluten from the diet can improve gut-related health concerns. When we continue to eat gluten, we're just sparking that inflammation within the gut. And that is why it is an inflammatory food. So yeah, it's I mean, that's a lot to digest. I know we only looked at 4, but these are really 4 of the main foods. You know, there's also other things like alcohol that's inflammatory. Sometimes caffeine can be inflammatory. And you know, specific grains in some people can be inflammatory. But I really wanted to nut out these 4 inflammatory foods, because they're foods that we can definitely look to reducing in our diet, and I feel like everyone could really benefit from reducing all of these, not just specific individuals. So all right, I kind of wanted to give you one more analogy around how these inflammatory foods are affecting the gut. And I will leave you on this note. So imagine you had a scab on your arm. You know, you cut your arm and then it started to heal, and it had a scab on it. And you know, just say for breakfast you ate cereal. I guess basically I want to say is, every time you eat gluten, or every time you eat refined sugar or carbohydrates, or every time you have inflammatory dairy if you can't tolerate it very well, or anything like that, any kind of inflammatory food, think about all the times that you've eaten it, or all the times that you eat it in a day. For every time that you eat it, imagine that you scratch the scab off your arm. So for breakfast, you have cereal and milk maybe, or cereal and a side of apple juice, or whatever that might look like for you. Scratch the scab off your arm, and then it's like, okay, it starts to reheal. And then at lunchtime, you might have you know, a sandwich, or a pie or a sausage roll, you know, scratch the scab off again. And then for afternoon tea, you might have a bicky or a cake or something. You know, scratch the scab off again. And then for dinner, you might have pasta with processed pasta sauce. scratch the scab off again. And then for dessert, you might have ice cream or a brownie or something, scratch that scab off again. And then if you're doing this every day, this scab is just, or this sore is just going to get bigger and bigger, and the scar is going to be massive, and it's never really going to be healing because you keep on scratching the scab. This is exactly what these foods do inside to the gut. So we constantly get this inflammation in the gut when we're eating these inflammatory foods, and we're never really allowing our gut the time of day to heal itself. So by removing these inflammatory foods, you're allowing your gut and your digestive system to have a break from feeding the inflammation, and just give it time to start being able to regenerate itself, start rebuilding itself. And if we're removing these inflammatory foods and we're feeding it with nourishing foods like healthy fats, fermented foods, just whole foods in general, really stripping away the packaged foods and coming back to whole foods which just contain the one ingredient. If you're buying a carrot, you're buying a carrot. You're not buying 1,000 ingredients in this one carrot. That's what a whole food is. So if we really strip it back to basics and go whole foods, healthy fats, even throw in a couple of fermented foods in there if you want to be creative, this is going to get you onto a gut healing journey in a matter of days. And I constantly see it with my clients, with my coaching clients. We make these small changes in the diet and we reduce stress, and the changes within a week are absolutely astounding, and it blows my mind every single time. So anyway, that is, I've been talking for an hour. This was a massive topic. I'm so sorry. But I get super passionate about this. So that was pretty much everything I wanted to talk about as far as inflammatory foods go, without kind of overwhelming you guys. I really wanted to strip it back to basics, but I also wanted to give you an understanding of how these inflammatory foods are actually, what are they actually doing to the body? And one more thing before I go, just another reminder. I want you to think about this week, what are you spending your money on? We're putting, what are you going to work for, to earn money for, to then use the money on? Are you going to be using that money on food that is going to continue to harm your body and contribute to your health concerns? Or are you going to be spending that money on foods that nourish the body so that you can live and thrive every day? So with that said, there's a couple of questions that you guys had in the Facebook group, and one of them was talking about, what does inflammation actually feel like? Now, this is so broad. It can feel like a range of different things, like, have you ever just felt really just sluggish? Like, have you ever just felt like, blah, like no energy? Super just like that layer of just like, ugh. That is what inflammation feels like. Do you ever feel constipated or bloated? That's what inflammation feels like. Do you ever feel anxious or depressed or emotional roller coaster like this? That is inflammation in the brain. Does your skin flare up? Do you get really bad acne or eczema? That is inflammation. Any kind of pain or discomfort, it is all inflammation. So whatever is happening for you, I guarantee you it is probably your type of inflammation. So inflammation looks different to everybody. Another beautiful lady, Danica, she said that she feels bloated after she eats and exercises. Now, bloating can be stemmed from a range of different things, but I would definitely say that, you guessed it, there's an imbalance in gut bacteria and a compromised gut lining happening there, but also honing in on stress levels. So, when we exercise, we're actually putting stress on our body. So is it necessary stress? Do you need that stress in your life? Or do you exercise too much? Or, what are you going through at the moment? There can be a lot of different reasons as to why people bloat. when they eat and when they exercise, but they're two key things to be looking at. So diet and lifestyle, how high are your stress levels, and what type of foods or inflammatory foods are you actually consuming. And she also asked if rhubarb was inflammatory. So rhubarb isn't necessarily a key inflammatory food like we've spoken about today. However, if you already have a compromised gut, then rhubarb could be, triggering something. Or, if you are noticing that every time you eat rhubarb, you're getting a flare up, then maybe just remove it for a week and see how you feel without it, because it might not be the rhubarb that is the inflammation or the inflammatory food. It could be the gut just needing to be rehealed or, rebuild itself before it can introduce rhubarb again. So yeah, that was kind of all the questions that was asked. I really have talked your heads off. Oh dear. And I've been talking all day, so my voice is getting a bit lost here. But I think I'm going to leave it there for now. If anyone has any questions at all, any curiosities, please let me know, post in the comments. And yeah, continue to show your to share your Facebook, to share your meals in the group, because I love seeing everyone's meals and love getting inspired. Hang on a minute. Let's have a look at the comments. Sorry, I didn't even see half these comments. Okay, hang on a minute. Okay, so let's have a drink here. Let's have a look. Is honey okay? Mel, I totally addressed that in the beginning. That is awesome. So if you're going to get honey, I would totally recommend local raw honey. Okay, my brain's fried. Okay, Mel said, is the spray can olive oil and spray can coconut oil okay to use? I am not a fan of this because, like Leela said here, a lot of them have additives. It's not a natural way of using oil. So if you can, always just get coconut oil and olive oil in dark containers, so like the dark bottles. When you find oil in the plastic bottles and it's light and you can see the yellow oil and like the vegetable oils, oil is really delicate. So when it's exposed to light, it can get damaged really quickly. So that's why they like to put olive oils in dark containers. So opt for that over the spray bottles. Okay. Didn't even seem like an hour. Oh, I'm glad. I feel like I probably took up way too many people's time, but anyway. Super informative. Okay, I'm glad you got something out of that, Cassie. And you're welcome, Michelle. Glad you got something out of that too. Yeah. Okay. Yes, please, to the nut paste. All right, Mel, I'll share the link with you there. Cool. All right, well, I'm pretty sure I've gone through everything. I'm saying a lot. I think I just need to go to bed, I reckon. Rest my little brain. Okay, I'm going to sign off. Lovely chatting with everyone. I'm so thankful that you guys jumped in and tuned in and got some little nuggets of wisdom, talking all things inflammatory food. So I'm going to be doing a post next week, like a poll. I'll do a poll every week to find out what you guys want to learn about. And yeah, we can go from there. So happy Thursday evening, everybody, and I will chat to you soon. Bye bye.